What is tragedy? Why does it happen? I had this question asked in one of my live streams, so I thought I would do this video explaining why we go through these difficult, traumatic events. Tragedy. Stuff that's out of our control, honestly. Stuff that just comes in, it's like a part of life. Everybody goes through it on some level. Every single person alive, there's no escaping some form of tragedy in your life. Whether when you were growing up, one of your parents died when you were a kid, maybe you got cancer when you were young, maybe you got into an accident, right? And there's like some kind of deformity, or you're paralyzed, right? Maybe you had a stroke. Maybe you had a really, really abusive relationship. Maybe you had just a really bad breakup, because that can be tragic, right? Yeah, like if it takes you guys 2 or 3 years to get over someone, that's a tragedy, man. These things are meant to be experienced and move on. Hurricanes, tornadoes, forces of nature, right? Like destruction, stuff that's just like, awe-inspiring, like, oh my God, wow, events in our lives where people just perish, right? And then a lot of it has to do with death. A lot of it has to do with loss. There's this vacuum that's created with that loss, whether it's through, the ending of a relationship or somebody just dies. They're just not there anymore. And how do you cope with that? Especially if there's attachment there. See, the attachment to your thoughts and to these external objects are what make these situations more tragic, okay? If you're dealing with that aspect, like a loss. But if it's a trauma that happens to you, now you're stuck with it. Now you're sitting with it. Now it's just with you all the time. Maybe it even becomes a part of your identity, like maybe a mental illness, right? Oh my God, what a tragic event the day I was diagnosed with something. It just shocked the fuck out of me. I couldn't handle it, right? Like similar to me, right? Like I had a bipolar 1 diagnosis. That was a trauma. It's like, I don't agree with this. And so now I'm like fighting it. I'm fighting it. And that's what happens is you're fighting the tragedy. So let's use a couple of examples. I think that's like the easiest way to dive into this, right? Let's say you are a relative of a kid that's really sick, that has cancer or, leukemia, something, okay? And then the kid succumbs to illness. And then like people ask the question, why, God, why? Or if this God is such a benevolent and loving and forgiving God, why would he create this suffering? Because all of these tragedies, in one way or another, lead to some suffering because of an attachment that we have to the situation, or we're unable to cope. We don't truly recognize what's going on energetically behind the scenes. And so all we see is just like an event that plays out. We label it a certain way, and then now that's just how it is. And then that creates turmoil and conflict within, and you're struggling with that. And then out of that is coming this suffering, and you're trying to escape it, but you don't know how to, and you're like, it's just this whole thing, okay? So this kid, why would a kid get leukemia? And I alluded to this in one of my other videos, Why would a kid get leukemia and die? What was the point of that kid coming in and like living for 5 years and then dying from leukemia? As an example, okay? That's a tragic event for the family, isn't it? For the little kid that has like his little friends. And like, oh no, Bobby's dead all of a sudden. Billy died. We go to the funeral, and we're trying to pick up the pieces, right? The parents are in shambles. Utter devastation, right? There's like, I don't know this personally, but it's been said there is no greater loss, no greater pain than a parent losing their child. That level of attachment, what is that supposed to teach? Because a lot of people go through this, guys. This isn't an uncommon thing. The devastation, the tragedy of losing a child, right? This is very common in the world. Many examples over and over again. Why? Why is there this recurring theme of parents losing their children at a young age or an older age, whatever. It doesn't really matter. It's always going to be tragic. That suffering is needed. There are important lessons, okay? The first lesson is you're not in control, okay? I talk about control. I talk about being in control of yourself. I talk about these things on this channel, okay? But like I say many times over, you're really only in control of one or two things, okay? The most fundamental thing that you're in control of is aligning yourself, okay? Bringing yourself as close as possible to union. And then because out of that place that you're resting in this peace, all of these things become known to you. You become aware of the inner workings and the energetic properties behind all of these manifestations on some level, okay? And that's where your intuition comes in. So it's like you're basically in control of surrendering to yourself, to surrendering to the self, the greatest grand self of God that you are. And every event that happens in your life that's tragic is pointing you back to the idea of there's no control over the external, really, until you achieve a certain level of mastery within yourself where you're so rooted in your own mastery of yourself that you recognize how yourself impacts and reflects the external. And so then how you mold yourself and change yourself, it reflects the external. So in some sense, there is a control over the external in a way, but you're not consciously, actively controlling it ever. You can only consciously be in control of your own behavior. But even that, when you zoom out, is also illusory. Like I go over this in my destiny versus free will video. Okay, it's like God acting through you, and honestly, the more you become aligned, the more it is God that's acting through you. That's where you realize that you're not really anything. You're just like a little puppet that's being acted out through. You know, and so your choices, you think they're super important choices, they're not so important in the grand scheme of things. You're going to act stuff out however you're meant to, based on your karma and based on how you react to tragedies in your life. This kid that died, okay? There are lessons for the child. The child asks to come in and experience that. We all ask to come in and experience our life path. We know how we're going to die, when we're going to die, when we come in. These are agreements that we're making. These are contractual in a way. For most. For some people, it's open-ended. For some people, there's like a place where you enter into an alignment with the divine will and your will, and you can kind of influence your own death in a way, but you're never ever truly outrunning death. It's always going to be there waiting for you, around the corner. So this kid that dies, it has relationships that are tied to it, to the kid, okay? And your cousins and your aunts and your mothers and brothers and sisters and fathers and all these layers of relationships and friends, right? They are all karmically attached to the child, like through a mental association, right? They've come into their lives, they've taken up space, they've taken up shop, and you're used to having this presence. Even if you don't see them ever, in your mind, they take up space. There's an etheric cord there. There's a karmic cord. There is an energy that you are consciously or subconsciously, unconsciously giving. And then when that is severed and they go to the great beyond, they're never truly ever gone. They're always in the ether, okay? They're always in that great beyond. But when they're lost from this physical, now there's a physical space that's created within your mind, energetically, and within the physical construct. And now that loss is of great importance. But most people don't recognize it for what it is. It's just suffering. I feel like shit, suffering. Oh my God, my son's gone, and you're crying and you're weeping and you're purging, and it's just pain. Just this just overwhelming pain. And God's asking you to surrender to this pain, to recognize the peace that's below the pain. The part of you that's aware of the pain. Because what happens now is there's so much pain that comes in and it just shocks you and it overtakes you, and now it's just like it's acting out through you. And you just have crying spells and you just lost it, right? And this pain happens in so many different aspects of our lives, like major depressions, major traumatic events, right? You were molested as a kid, you were raped as a kid, you were like whatever. Like all these serious things. You're meant to understand that there are Some things that we're meant to go through, contractual things almost, you're not escaping it. These are major life events that are shaping you, and how you react or learn or behave from it takes you on a trajectory through your life. That's A. And then B, I have no control in some sense, right? If you have some things that you're just meant to experience, what control is there? You're not escaping it. So I'm saying, like, guys, there's no escaping God. There's no escaping life from playing out. All you can do is align yourself as much as possible with whatever outcome is happening or not happening, and being okay with it. And you're like, how can I be okay with trauma, with like tragedy, fucking my shit up? How can I be okay with that? There are lessons in there, guys, for everyone. There's this massive tapestry of life that's going on, okay? Interwoven, all these consciousnesses, energies, layers of etheric stuff that we can't see. They're playing out magnificently, perfectly, for everyone's highest good always. That's how awesome it is. It's awesome, this God, this life. It awe-inspiring awesome, shakes you to the core when you get glimpses of it. Oh my fucking God, how awesome this shit is. I'm not saying like, oh, awesome, great time. No, awesome. Like, oh, wow. Awe. True awe. It is in everything, even in the tragedy, even in the conflict and the trauma. But you don't see it because you're so bought into your own mental lens and mental projection and conditioning. And so what happens now is this traumatic event happens, this tragedy, the kid dies, and you're going to experience it through your own mental filter and associations. Oh, this shouldn't have happened. Oh, how could this happen? Why did this happen? You ask all the questions that everybody asks towards any event that happens in life. It doesn't matter what the event is. You're going to ask all the same questions, and you're going to wonder why. And the most base thing is, it's suffering, guys. It's suffering that's meant to get you on the path to waking up and realizing yourself, so that when you are awakened and reach the nirvana, enlightenment, bullshit, whatever you want to call it, that same event, if it were to happen again, wouldn't pulverize you into nothingness, into submission of like, oh my God, what a piece of shit I am. All these mental associations that we make based on these traumas, right? Life's just not working out for me. Oh my God, I've had so many tragedies in my life. These are all pointing you in some way through the suffering to yourself that stops making those associations, that realizes that this suffering was needed on some level for someone or something. There's always a grand plan that we're unawares, man. You know the overall trajectory, guys. I've mentioned the trajectory. I've mentioned the new earth energy of evolving consciousness on this earth. You know that. That's a very basic realization that comes in. But how it plays out and why it plays out and when it plays out and all the different why and when and how and whatever, we don't know shit. So the quicker you let go of trying to make sense of a tragic event in your life, the easier it's going to be on you. You just accept it fully. There's no control there. You just accept the outcome. And it's delusional for the person that's fully bought into mind and attachment for you to say, hey man, just let go, just like surrender to it, just submit to it. It sounds insane. Why would I submit to this? Because on some level you feel like the more conflict, it's like the conflict is owed. Like I'm raising a glass to that great, there's one thing where you're celebrating someone, you're raising the glass, like, and honoring their life. Another thing where like, I'm just going to drink myself into submission. Like, I'm raising a glass. Here, this is the Bobby who died early. I can't handle that he died, And it just torments you for life. You never get over that one relationship. You never get over that one death. You never get over that one traumatic fucking thing that happened to you when you were younger, or maybe even older. It doesn't matter when the trauma happens. It is your reaction or non-reaction and realization of how utter lack of control there is, really. All you're in control of is your perception of it. And so if you haven't done the base level, the base layer understandings work, the work to try to get you to a more, beneficial place of understanding, You're not going to see it. And you're always going to have those questions, why? I'm wondering why? Well, I mean, like how are you going to understand that unless you try to see the nature of how reality works? You know, and then you're like, okay, well, okay, I want to understand the nature of reality. I'm going to understand science and psychology and stuff like that. These things are always going to be illusory on some level. The spiritual umbrella is the only umbrella that has these fundamental questions to the nature of the physical and the unphysical and us in terms of it. Your own intuition, the God knowing in you, is the only thing that has all the answers, because it is holistic. It has the whole view, and it's never going to be known as words in your mind or thoughts in your mind. It's just feeling, knowing. And it's just, you don't get how you get it, but you get it. And so then you go through some trauma, and it's just, for some reason, you just see it for what it is, and you're much easier allowing it to let go into it and surrender into it. And you can see trauma after trauma happening in your life, and then it shifts your perspective. Stuff that may have been traumatic to you at one time now has no power over you. That's the true power. Your internal state, how you react or not react. That's the true power. How do you get to that place? Well, you know, I've said it ad nauseum, so I'm not going to keep repeating it. Tragedy is meant. There is no accident. There is no coincidence. We label them as accidents. You got into a car accident, and then like somebody died, or you know they lost a limb, or they're blind in one eye, or it can be anything. That is not an accident. It's not like, oh, woe is me, like how could this happen to me? It is all very calculated, very meticulously planned for you. There is no event that you ever go through that is not meant to happen, because you're going through it. So even if on the periphery, you weren't that close to that person, and it wasn't super tragic for you, but it was kind of sad, you experiencing that kind of sadness, or like, oh my God, wow, what a tragedy. I just can't, that, you know, you hear a news event, or you hear, and you sympathize, but you're not close to it, so there's no hardcore trauma. However far removed you are from that trauma, that's exactly the level of suffering or distaste or whatever you're meant to feel. If I was meant to be close to somebody and then I lose them, I'm meant to be close to them and lose them. There's a great significance in that event. And how you respond and how you go through it literally shapes you. You bring it into you. It's a part of you, that tragedy now. And it shapes and guides you. You start, if it affects your consciousness and how you see, then every moment from that point on is like a trajectory and a happening afterwards that's guided and directed it from that root event. And so it's like root event, tragedy. And then choices. And then another branch up here, another tragedy, branching off. And it's just back and forth, duality of tragedy, back and forth. Choices. That's all it is. And now you've reached this time where you're now like 30 years, 50 years, 70 years into your life of all these branches of tragedy and joy and tragedy and joy, and you're navigating it, and it's all shifting your consciousness back and forth through suffering and alignment and suffering and alignment. And you're trying to eventually get yourself onto this aligned state of being permanently, or as close as possible to it. There's no true permanence in it, because life itself is impermanent. I mean, it's all meant to fuck with us, guys. But don't get stuck in the suffering that's attached to the trauma or the tragedy. And it's easier said than done, obviously. Darius said just don't do it, so I'm just not going to do it. Well, how are you going to do it? You don't know how. That's what this channel is about, is giving you the tools to figure out how to do it. To where you get to the point where you're not even asking the question how I do it, you just are it. And it doesn't fuck with you anymore like it used to. It's a very powerful place to exist from. And you can have that for yourself. Don't you want to get to a point where like all of these tragic events, that we label them as tragic events, have no true power over you? I'm not saying you're not going to feel. I'm not saying that you're not going to have momentary lapses of depression or sadness or crying. You're human. Just as Jesus cried when Lazarus died, right? Guys, we feel. And it just goes back to my feeling video. You must feel fully. You're here. You have these things in you, but just don't fight it when it comes up, and then you purge it quicker. Let it feel it fully. I feel sad. I'm not gonna fucking hide that I feel sad. I feel sad. I feel like just fucking bawling my eyes out because this tragic event happened. Go through that. It is teaching you something about yourself on some level, whether you're conscious of it or not. Don't fight it. All it is just resistance and fighting and fighting and I don't want it. But you gotta go through it, guys. So there's a reason it's happening. Either directly to you or within you, even with mental illnesses and whatever associations you're making to life. It can be an external trauma, an internal trauma, whatever. An external trauma that makes it an internal trauma, all these different layers of tragedy and loss. They're meant to teach you. The quicker you find yourself, the less traumatic or tragic it becomes. It's almost like you just see it for what it is, and there's no right or wrong or should or shouldn't label. It just is. And because you're so tapped into that isness of it, you see it very clearly. It doesn't have power over you. Nothing ever truly has power over you, but your own internal state of being ever.